Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Erica Thiel, and I am a 4-H programs. I guess it's program coordinator or special. I don't know. I don't remember my title anymore. One of my main hats in Idaho is 4-H Online. I also do support for Nevada as well as Alaska. I'm going to cover today some very basic navigation pieces, if you will, and help you get started within 4-H Online. As we move forward collectively with functions and different features that are available in 4-H Online, you'll find that there's a lot that the system can do for you. There are advanced pieces. I'm not going to go into too much depth on that, but I wanted to share just off, before I kind of get rolling here on 4-H Online elements. I do have a repository, if you will, of help sheets that kind of cover different FAQ stuff. And this is my staff help sheet page, so I copied and pasted that URL into the chat box. But this website's kind of your one-stop shopping. If there's something that you're not totally understanding, or if there's something you have a question on that I may cover today, pretty sure that there's information on here that can kind of help walk you through some of those elements. I do have recorded webinars and trainings. This last training here I've done with Oregon, but it does have that general content overview. So if there is somebody that is not on this presentation, although they'll be able to view this presentation too, but if you have a transition, new hires, something down the line where you need to show people a video, or if they need a little bit more time to go over some elements, this is definitely the place to go. I do have a wide variety of tip sheets on enrollment, data management components, club and project manager setup, login, some of the authorization pieces, pulling reports. These are a couple of features that you guys don't have yet, which would be animals and friends, sending your broadcast emails in the system, and then last but not least, your rollover components, and then reporting guidelines for the ES-237. Feel free to help yourselves to that information, and if you do have questions on that, my philosophy is there's no such thing as a bad question, and so we do have those support pieces in place. If you do have questions on 4-H Online, or you are running into an issue, and this is going to be pretty important as we're going to be rolling over here in 48 hours or so, your support mechanism, if you will, is Zendesk. And the nice thing about Zendesk for me, I can get upwards of 250 to 300 emails a day. The Zendesk tickets go into a separate queue. So, and Carrie, if you could put this in the chat box, that would be great. But if you have an issue or a question, please email support@nevada4h or 4-h.zendesk.com. That creates a ticket for me, and that puts it into a separate queue, but that definitely flags in my email system, and I also have a Zendesk app, so I can kind of monitor what is going on. And so a little basic overview about 4-H Online. So we are at the end of the 15-16 4-H year, and we have a variety of records in 4-H Online, various statuses. But what happens for your active records, at midnight the system automatically rolls over, puts everybody to an inactive status, and we kind of start from a clean slate. Now, I understand a lot of you are new, but you should have a login to 4-H Online. And what will happen, or what you will see when you log in, is something very similar to what I have on my screen. The primary tab that you're going to work in at this point in time is enrollment, and that's a lot of the content that we'll cover today. we will touch a little bit on the Connect tab. The search screen is going to be your friend. The search screen will allow you to search your database, if you will, looking for members, and what we constitute or classify members are youth and adult volunteers. They're the only ones that should have a profile in 4-H Online. For counties that are allowing login, parents shouldn't be creating their profile in here. We capture parental information in the youth record, or we capture their information if they're adult volunteer. An adult volunteer is somebody, you know, it could be your resource leaders, and I don't know if Carrie has resource leaders create a profile in here. They should. But your certified volunteers, kids are going to be leading your projects and your clubs, should definitely have a profile in 4-H Online. A lot of times we will have new families come in, they say, well, I've started a record, but if you search their name, nothing comes up here. The next tab that you're going to want to search, and this gets specific to the family and the hierarchy of 4-H Online, that family record is kind of the hub. And then from below that, if you're thinking of kind of like a ladder chart, then you get into the individual records. So the families tab is a good place to search if you're having difficulty finding it by a member volunteer name. This means that they've actually created an individual record. And 9 times out of 10, especially if they're using or trying to start a new record in a mobile device, there tends to be a little difficulty. There's just a lot of information that you have to go through and to create that initial enrollment. So part of it's creating that family record, and then part of it's creating the member. So if they run into issues with their internet connection, that type of thing, or they get bumped out of the system, it's highly likely that they may have a component of that family record created. And so you want to search this families tab. You can search by the email address, which is always a good idea. Searching by their last name. You can even search by the physical address. And sometimes there's wonky things where the last name gets entered in, especially there's different parameters that you can search by, but searching by that email address is key. And so kind of what I'm talking about here as far as the family record and what I mean by that, if you log into an individual record and you go to the member list, the family record and kind of this initial information here that's asked for when you first start a new record, it's asking for their address, it's going to ask for a phone number and an email address. And there's a couple things about 4-H Online. Your ability to have a successful opportunity in 4-H Online starts and stops with the email address. And it's very important, regardless of what way you are having families enter into 4-H Online, be it they create their profile or if you're doing paper-based enrollment, folks need to have a valid working email address. If it comes to a point, and there are situations where you have families that don't have email, and perhaps maybe they have no internet at all, I'm trying to not encourage the creating of records with a fake email address, because it does kind of create problems down the road. So you can do that, but it doesn't take but 2 minutes to create an internet address or an email address, either through Yahoo, Gmail. Work with that family to get something created and use that. I had started off using fake email addresses because a lot of our families, we were coming off of a different system. We had decided to do paper-based enrollments when we transitioned into 4-H Online, and I really regret encouraging counties using fake email addresses, because that's created a lot of problems. And especially if you're on the cusp, you're kind of in that paper base, we might have families open it up. You're going to want to do like a family open house and have families give you their valid working email address. 90% of the time, people have multiple email addresses and they forget which one they've affiliated their 4-H online record with. So where it gets problematic is when they decide that they need to create a new record. And it is possible to get duplicates. I've even seen quads. That's a housekeeping piece that I have to clean up, and it can get fairly messy. But we want to try to be the whole point of having a database like this is it opens it up for your staff. Everybody in your office should have a login. It's not going to create, I have yet to destroy or blow up 4-H online. It may not be as intuitive as people would expect or think that it should be, but if you use it, and that's the big piece, using it is how you're going to learn it. Once you kind of get over those initial pieces, it is easy, and you can have multiple people working into this data. But the big critical piece is managing your data, and we want to have a solid data set. So when we get into duplicate records, we get into triplicate records, that messes up the waters. We have to clean that, but that's a management piece, but it's very important. So let me go back into kind of the basic elements, and then we'll get into how these profiles are created. But when you come into the system, you'll have your search screen here. The members tab, as I said before, is going to be a very common area that you're going to work through. You can filter this down by role. So what we mean by role is if they're an adult volunteer, an adult or perhaps a youth. And you have your statuses. Active status means their enrollment has been submitted, you've reviewed it, their county fees are paid. For volunteers, that means if it's a new volunteer, they've gone through the application process, they've gone through the certification process. If you do collect a county fee, that's been paid. If they need a background screen, that part has been done. Volunteers, and volunteers should say that they're a volunteer, but they don't. So the green V says, yes, they're a volunteer. Any adult that's working with children in 4-H, they are a volunteer. They just don't click that radio button. Where that becomes an issue is when you go to allow them to log in. If they don't have that green V checked, then you just need to go in their profile, click that button. But yes, they are a volunteer. They should not be meeting with children if any of those components have not been completed. They can stay pending until the cows come home, but they should not be having 4-H meetings or club meetings until they're in active status in 4-H online. And the reason why is that becomes a risk management issue. And, that's our job is, the day-to-day managing of our volunteers, of our 4-H program. It is an absolute critical piece. I'm a little hard-nosed on that, is we do have volunteers in Idaho that have tried to circumvent that process. And there's ways that we're working around that, but it is very important that we know definitively that these folks have met these, the criteria, the policies that we've set forth at the state level. That expectation needs to be met. You're going to see a variety of statuses. Inactive means they have not re-enrolled for the new year. If they're incomplete, and it is good to do just a blanket search of incomplete records, especially once enrollment starts, just to see if there's folks that haven't made it through finishing the enrollment process. These need to be, if they've indicated a phone number, you need to follow up with them. If they don't come back, you can delete these records, or they'll just go inactive. If you have been using the system for a while, and let's say these families aren't going to be coming back, you can archive them. And I'll kind of go into some of those components here. Projects. The projects tab, and if there's some folks on today's session that have not gone through and indicated project completion, this is a rollover piece But you'll want to take your fare sheets and you want to find the appropriate project. We're going to want to work on this as a group as we go down the line. Animals needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. We need to get specific into what species of animals. And if we have animals, okay, so let's get into beef. Okay, so let's say it's the end of the year next year. How about, let's try and start. Get any takers. Okay, so let's say I've got my project folders that have been evaluated. I've got all the placings. I know, and perhaps for this county, fair is how we, or our public setting for exhibition. If that's been completed, then you check the members' names, and then you just select project completion, enter in the date, and what will happen is if I enter in this date and click complete checked projects, it will give us a project completed date. The nice thing for that is when we roll over, then we have that year in 4-H project that marks that, and then that helps carry forward that number of years that member has participated in the project. Activities and awards are a couple of optional fields that you can use, that you can pull information if there's different events or that type of thing. If they've gotten an award, you can kind of search by that. You can also search by specific activities. And those are the primary tabs you're going to use off of the search screen. My account, so we expect our families to manage their information. You can manage your information as well. If you get stuck, and I guess this is a good time, don't share passwords, don't share your email logins. There is no problem with individuals having logins that are in your office. And if you need me to create a login, just send me an email or send me a support ticket. I can get that set up. That's not a problem. The next option, and before I get back into the options, I'm going to kind of go into kind of your managing your data, if you will. For the most part, since you guys have had a system, have the system for a while, all of your clubs should be in here. And if you click on the clubs icon, this will give you a rundown of your active or inactive clubs. And you can click edit on any of these, but what you're going to see is their club title, what the delivery mode is, and any of these fields that you see here on the left, those are bold. So if you need to add a club, to do so, you just, in this little gray bar right under here is how you would do that. But it's going to ask for the contact person's name. And then the nice thing here is also you'll see your volunteers. Now, if they've clicked the little radio button that they are a volunteer, then those folks are going to start to populate on this list. And so then you can do allow login. You can also allow member management. Login gives them the ability to get those lists that maybe they call you all the time and want, or if you're new to your position, they will call you and want. So that is definitely something to consider. You can allow your leaders to log in to 4-H Online. Allowing member management, that's kind of a, I've left that up in Idaho to the county as far as how they want to handle that. Member management allows them to change member records. That's something to keep in mind. And when we get into the volunteers, they can approve who's in their club. That does not supersede your approval of a member, and that will make sense here in a little bit. But that's where you would see who can log in for this particular club. That does not mean that's a project. Project leaders is a different spot for this. This is strictly your club leaders. So what we call our organizational leaders. The system will generate automatically a club password And if you are working with your leaders on login, I recommend changing that, making a new password. You confirm it. I think it has to be 8 characters, have some sort of a numeric element to it. Make it simple, and especially if you're going to have multiple leaders logging in, that just helps stave off folks not being able to access the club. And the passwords that the system automatically generates, they're really, there's a combination of capital letters, lowercase letters, and no rhyme or reason. So you want to make this something that's going to be easy for those folks to remember. If you need to reset it, it's not a big deal. At the state level, we can enter in projects, but if there is a project missing off of your list, or perhaps it's something specific to your county, you can add a project alias. And so you're going to want to make sure that these, if you've got any new clubs, they're going to be coming to your system. I know Carrie's going to be working with you guys on the chartering process and making sure all of your I's are dotted and T's are crossed on that. So make sure that club has got all the required components. Want to set up your clubs. You can also set up your projects. And adding your project aliases is very simple. It's just a matter of entering in the title and then making that connection with the state level list. It's not likely that there's a lot missing off of this list. There's a lot of projects listed here, so be very diligent in checking this before you add a project alias, because what will happen is when you go to the next step, and I'm kind of going into this with the lines of, these are your setup pieces before you get into entering an enrollment record. You have to make sure your clubs are good, project aliases are good. The nice thing about this, this all rolls over. So unless there's some new items, which I don't think there are, the next piece is making sure that with this specific club, that whatever projects are offered in that club, that is identifiable. And that's a very important piece, not only for you folks that are doing paper-based enrollments, but also for your families. And this is a piece that you can do today, is making sure your projects are linked to your clubs. So how you do that is on the options icon, and let me go back, make sure you guys are following along. Options icon in this little gray ribbon here, and as we work through the system, there tends to be a lot of pieces that come up underneath this dashboard in a little gray bar. But you want to click on the options icon and then click link projects to clubs. And from here you will get a drop-down list of all your clubs. And if you have a lot, then sometimes you have to scroll. But you're going to want to make sure that the appropriate projects are populating on this list. Now, if this, let's say, okay, so for Boulder City 4-H Club, everything is selected. If they, in fact, do not offer or do all of these projects, I would clean that up just to prevent disappointed kiddos and families, and that helps you definitively identify, okay, these are the projects that are part of this club. And if you're working off paper-based enrollments, this gets kind of handy too, because that will shorten down the drop-down list that you're going to see, or conversely that your families are going to see. You do need to repeat this for every club. So, for example, if I was keying in an enrollment for 4-H Council, nothing would show up and I would not be able to add a project. And so then you'll go, well, why is that not working? That's where you have to come back and make those links. So that is a cleanup piece that you can do now, and whatever changes you make at this point in time in the system right now, those will carry forward to Saturday. Those are a persist piece. Looks like we have some questions here in the chat box.
I think I got her taken care of.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Carrie. So another piece with the options. And I guess I would be very reluctant to check these boxes. Do not allow any new families to create their record, and do not allow existing families to edit their record. I would encourage people to utilize and access 4-H online and use the internet as much as possible. Even in Idaho, and we have severely remote areas, we still have counties that have a mix. And I understand the challenges of technology. When you do that, that means nobody can touch the system. They can't log in, and it locks them out. So for the most part, you're going to leave that unchecked. Now, I have had some counties this year, you know, once they've gotten done with FAIR, they're trying to re-enroll already. That might be something you want to mark after your FAIR, just to make sure families aren't creating new records or trying to re-enroll because they can't. Their enrollment record basically goes from October 1 to September 30th, and that is, I guess it does vary state by state on when their 4-H year is, but that is your 4-H year. Now, there are a couple of things that you can do to help stave off brand new livestock kids when you're halfway through your 4-H year. You can set a last month and last day for project selection. And I do have a lot of folks that use that. Yes, in 4-H, we're open to participation, but we have made the recommendation. A lot of counties in Idaho have that project enrollment deadline for FAIR. So that helps make that specific to FAIR. No, we are still inclusive. There are other opportunities these families can engage in. But this helps you in several areas. And this helps if you do have internet-based enrollment open, you have families that are using the system. This prevents your beef kiddo, a new beef kiddo, showing up on the list come April or May. And that causes a lot of consternation and red flags with your beef leaders. Like, oh, who is this? So that is an option. That is very helpful. You will not use these, the enrollments or events components here. And if you do make any changes to the project selection date, you want to make sure you hit save. And I did forget to mention, when you link your projects to clubs, after you've checked your boxes, and you can, if you have a majority and you need to, you know, be random, you can go through and uncheck here and there. Be sure that you hit update at the bottom. The update will save those changes, and you do need to hit update. It will not save automatically. So that kind of gets you all ready to rock and roll for enrollment. Your schools, and I really didn't touch on schools, but the schools should already be in there for you guys. If you do need to add a school, it's very simple. Again, in the little gray ribbon under the dashboard, you just enter in the title, what kind of school it is, and then you have, you know, I'm already in Clark County, but you make the affiliation to the school district, and these fields are in bold. But for the most part, all your schools should be ready to roll. So with those components, and these are some elements you can check now, you're pretty much ready to rock and roll for your enrollments. As enrollments come in, this is going to be probably one of your favorite icons, aside from the search icon, is confirm members. So this gives you a list of members that are needing approval. And that's all, you know, you're going to, even with your county-based ones, I mean, you'll probably be able to work through this list a little bit easier for the ones that have a paper-based enrollment. If they've got their money, then you can just go right through and approve them. Now, if it's an enrollment-based piece, then you're going to see this record in here. One thing I would definitely make sure is make sure all of your kiddos and your adults are affiliated with a primary club. That makes a data error in 4-H Online. So you do want to make sure when you're checking these records that there is a club affiliation. If you're not 100% sure on where they should go, or perhaps where this individual is located in your county, take that time to make the connection, make sure that they're getting placed in the appropriate club. But then once their money has been received, click approve, and you'll see, so you have this list. Let's say Gregory is paid, and what you would do is you'd log into this record, and to save having to go through click, 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 you can just click on County Review, and then this gives you an enrollment snapshot, if you will. Gives you their name. Yes, they're pending, but it gives all the information. And then on their enrollment information, it gets into their demographics. They provided consent to the code of conduct, assumption of risk. And we get down here to their club. Oh, they didn't select a project. So this is something where you can either, if it's an enrollment based, you can send a message and say, what project are you wanting to do? Or you could also make a phone call, but you're going to want to get that projects that this individual is going to do before you hit accept member. If you're going to just, if it's an enrollment one, just type in your message, please identify what projects you want to take. If you have any questions, call me. And if you hit send back to member, that sends it back, and they'll get, when they log into 4-H Online, they will get a resubmit flag when they log in. And that works pretty slick, especially if you're handling a lot of enrollments. And again, you don't want to accept those until they've got all their monies in and everything's good. It's kind of the same piece with your volunteers. Again, you're going to want to make sure they've done the application, they've done the certification. You know, if you have an orientation before enrollment can be approved, any of those elements, all of those need to be approved. Then the accept is the last piece that you would do. So when you, let me go back to county. So let's kind of go into the components of a member record, if you will. If you're working on paper-based enrollments, or let's say I'm a new family and I want to add, it's a little different. I would have to be outside the system if I want to add myself, but to add a family, you just click this little button here. We're on the enrollment tab, search icon, and below your area, or the filter area I call it, you have the ability here to click add family. And so you would enter in, you know, it defaults to your county that you're logged in. You enter in the family name, family email, and phone. And then you click add family. Once you get to that component, and I'm kind of doing this a little different because I don't want to mess up Vegas's database here, but you will come to this member screen. So there won't be anybody here, but you will have basically all the information that we've just entered in. The family name, address, phone number, and email. The email is a very critical component. And if a family hasn't disclosed, let's say you do an enrollment night and you have everybody fill out their packets. If they haven't disclosed an email, work with that family, have them send an email address up. At minimum, when they come into town, they should be able to access 4-H Online from their public library. I mean, that is a viable option. They're also welcome, you know, you can work as an office to establish maybe an open computer where families need to access that. Maybe they come into town once in a while, then they can manage their data. And that's kind of the premise behind this. We're not taking away folks' jobs, but it does help you put some hours in your job into different areas without having to chase paper. So I get the paper piece, but identify ways to kind of help out families if there is a need on that. to where they're using the information, because that's kind of the intent on this. You know, the more they use it, the more they'll enjoy that, and it makes things a lot easier. Trust me on that one. But what we'll just say, we just entered in this family, we didn't add a record, and so where you would go to do that is you can add a new family member, and you have the option of adding an adult or a youth. A contact, now if you needed to add contact information, you can for parents, but since we're capturing that already, especially in the youth record, if it's a split household, you have the option identifying first household, second household. You are capturing all the information, so there really isn't a need to add a contact. Maybe if an individual is a fair board member or whatever, you can, but that's completely up to you. It is an option to identify contacts, but it's not a requirement. But let's say we're going to add a youth. And we add a member. So what it's going to do, it's going to ask for personal information, and I don't know how much I'm going to be able to forward through here. We'll just do a hypothetical.
I will put it on and say that I need you to shut up, please.
And any of these fields with an asterisk bold are required. And you'll notice that the email address pulled forward from the family as well as the phone number. These are all optional fields here, but we can identify parent first name, last name, cell phone, second household. It does default to Clark County. Are you a volunteer? It will ask your ethnicity questions, and then it will ask your residence. Birds. Does ask questions on military service, and I think it won't let you go if you don't answer that one. You can access your school information. And then you need to select the child's grade. And then this is information your families are going to see as well. They will log in to 4-H Online. You know, they'll see the login screen to 4-H Online. I need to create a profile. They'll get asked that family record piece. And they will come in, and this is kind of the same fields that they're going to have to fill out as well. The nice thing about having your families access the system is that they need to do the authorizations. Now, I'm logged in as the county, so what will happen, you're going to want to make sure that these documents that they're providing consent to are signed off by the parents, that you are not providing consent, so you can't do this process over the phone. If your families are actually logged into the system, what they're going to see is actually the documentation that goes along with that. You all should probably have that with your policies and procedures, or you'll know what that verbiage is, but on the county view, you won't see that. You will see, though, these little exclamation marks, but if you enter in the date, basically, that you received the packet and all the authorization consent is there, then you can just enter in these fields here. Yes, you got the document, they agree, and just carry those fields forward. And then basically parental consent, yes, they agreed. And then it comes time to select the club. And you have to select the club, then click Add Club. If they're involved in multiple clubs, that's fine, but you have to delineate, okay, what is their primary club? They do have to have an affiliation with one primary club. And if you hit the Continue button, then they just select, so there's no projects affiliated with that one. So let's go to think. Oh, I forgot which one has. There we go. There we go. So that was a good example of what happens when you have projects affiliated to your club. Let's see, we're going to do bicycle. Years in project. So if they're brand new, this is their first year in 4-H. Add project. And then from there, you can just submit the enrollment. And so when an individual is on the internet and submits their enrollment, you will get an email and you will get an alert, and you will actually see that here on, I don't see a new message, but you should get an email alert that you have a new enrollment. And there's Betty right there on the top of the list. Now, I'm going to just delete this, but what you will see when you log in, okay, we have all of our information. And then when you log in, and then even if you were in the additional information logged in as the county, this is the screen you'll see with those type of enrollments where you'll have the exclamation marks. You will have those because you don't have the actual electronic signature, which is okay. You've indicated here, and these yellow fields are manager fields. So you're gonna, this will be a very common view for you if you're keying in those enrollments. Now, if it's an online enrollment, then you will see all check marks here. And there's nothing wrong with this enrollment record the way it is. We just keyed it in. We have the paper copy, but I didn't want you guys to, don't be alarmed with these exclamation marks. So we've got the clubs, we've got bicycle. Now, if I was looking at this enrollment and there's supposed to be a member in Blue Ribbons, then I would send a message back and say, okay, what projects are you going to take in Blue Ribbons? If it's a keyed in thing, then I have to go and link the project to the club, select the appropriate project. But in this case, I'm going to delete the member. If you have a list of pending folks, you can go in and delete them. It's not going to hurt anything if they just stay. They're just going to go into inactive status at midnight anyway. So that's your option. I would leave them in if you know they're going to be back, because then that saves a couple steps in having to create the information. If you're not sure, or if perhaps you're not sure if maybe they have multiple emails, it's just as easy to delete it as well. That does not take away the family record. And so that's something to keep in mind. Okay, let's see. How are we doing? Any questions on some of those components? The adult record's the same. It's just, you know, they're going to be filling out their information. You're going to want to make sure, though, you have a listing, especially on your new volunteers, the steps that they've gone through. If they've gone through the application, okay, that's great, but they probably need to have an interview, orientation, if you have those components. Did they get their background screen done? And you can kind of help shore up that process a little bit by making your application a little, you know, your process delineated from the registration. So if you have all those certification components as a precursor, then send out a letter and say, okay, yes, we've approved you. Here are the steps to log into 4-H Online, or you can have that individual come in and they can create a record. There are some great pieces in 4-H Online as far as being able to communicate information to your families. On your home screen, actually let me log in. So a lot of folks sometimes aren't too sure on what families actually see when they log in. So the login piece is the same, And when they click login, this is kind of their first screen that they save or see. Announcements and newsletters. You have the ability to post your county newsletter or any important components that you need to communicate to your families right here within 4-H Online. So if you're in a budget crunch, and I don't know of a 4-H program that never really has to kind of pinch pennies, but there's ability for families to identify what their correspondence preference is via email or mail, which is helpful. The value of that to you is you can go, okay, well, if they've identified that their correspondence preference is email, then you can really make that move towards an electronic newsletter. This gives you another place of posting your information in electronic format. If you don't have like a social media page or a website, you can post your county newsletter here. You can also send out a broadcast email with a link of that newsletter in there. So there's multiple ways of communicating this information out electronically without having to send it via mail. But your announcements and newsletters will appear here for the family, and all they do is click continue to the family. So that's kind of what they would see. To post your newsletters, you want to click on the connect icon, and you'll see a variety of pieces here. Oh, I see some activity in here in the chat box. So, yeah, Carrie is correct. Okay, so on your Connect tab, you have messages. We have the ability to send messages to colleagues or to other folks in the system. State Form does not work anymore, but the icon you're going to want is newsletters. I recommend any of your newsletter components being uploaded in a PDF format. You can also upload as your two formats that you can upload into upload items into 4-H Online can be a JPEG, which is, you could take a picture with your smartphone or with your iPad, or you can even do it with your camera, or a PDF. The nice thing about uploading PDFs is that your families can't edit or manipulate the information. And I have had families do that when I worked in the county. I made that mistake once. I uploaded a Word document and some stuff got changed on it, and well, that's not what it said. Well, when I have the original and I see it and it had the information and it was changed, it just keeps everything the way you created it and what the dates are supposed to be. But to do that, you click on the icon, click Add Newsletter, enter in a title, and then just click Create. You want to enter in your date. Oops. And so then here, you're going to want to click Share with Members. So that will show on your families. You can share with managers as well. That will show for whoever logs in the system at a manager level. So county, states, any of your colleagues will see that information as well when they log in with their respective manager enrollment. Then you just simply click Browse, find a PDF, and it's uploaded, and then you just click Save. And then what will happen is that newsletter then becomes part of your queue. I'm not going to save it. I'm going to delete it. Then we're going to jump. I'm not going to go into broadcast newsletters yet, but a way to check your enrollment and to kind of see how things are going, you're at some point going to want to pull reports. So back on the enrollment tab, all the way to the right is your reports icon. And this, when you click on this, it will default to your enrollment reports tab, but then it'll take you to your custom report. You're going to want to click on standard reports. And in here are a wide variety of locked report, just canned reports that are already in the system. For folks that are already in 4-H Online, or returning staff, your ES-237 takes all of your enrollment information and it populates that, and I will touch on group enrollment, which is another component of that here in a minute. But that report is submitted via 4-H Online automatically. But this is a handy report that you're going to want to pull. This shows you, and to do that, you have a couple options. You can click on it and run, or if you highlight it and right click, you can export your report to a PDF. I tend to do a lot more of that export to PDF. You want to print from there. You tend to run into a lot less issues with formatting and page layout if you export it to the PDF first. And so what will happen is you'll get this little pop-up. You want to click open and hit OK. And so what you'll see here is basically your youth members, organized community clubs. Then it gets into your other delivery modes, and then your total 4-H club participation. And then this information on F, G, or basically F through M, a lot of this information is pulled in from your group enrollment pieces. And then if you scroll down, this will give you a breakout on your basically your demographic participation, or at least on age, your gender, place of residence. And then you get into your ethnicity and race. So sometimes if you need to make a presentation, or if your county chair asks, okay, so how are we interacting, or how are we meeting the need to our underserved populations, you're going to be wanting to come to this report on this page, on page 3. Then it gives you a snapshot of your volunteers. And then I'm a curriculum person, but one thing I always thought was handy on this is seeing kind of where our participation is within the different project areas. And it's a good way also, as you're doing your project completion, if you have multiple leaders for a project, and let's say you had a couple leaders, had everybody complete, but you had one leader that didn't, that might cause a follow-up, or you might want to follow up with that leader to see what was going on. And this also gives you things to think about. Okay, where can we enhance programming, or where do I need to recruit leaders for, in what project area? And you can pull this report at any time. So, and the nice thing too is you can log in and you can pull this report as you guys build your data set. You can pull this report from previous years, and it's all right there. You can do your family labels. So all you need, you can go by name, or you can go by zip code, and all you need to do on that is simply highlight and export to PDF. On the labels, you definitely want to print those from the PDF versus printing from the run report option here in the system. These automatically are formatted to your standard Avery 5160 format. And the cool thing is this is basically all of your mailing labels for all of your data by family, which is super cool. Then you have some standard member reports. You can do a project enrollment report. I don't know if the statistics is working yet, but we can try. It's thinking about it. Sometimes, depending on the computer day, you want to watch your internet browser. Okay, so it is not working. You may get the blue ribbon, the circle, If you run into a functionality issue where all you get is the circle on certain things, that's definitely something I need to know about, and we'll send to James and Celeste. You can filter down your club reports. So if you want a member active, but let's say you want to filter it down for a specific club, then you can do a club override, which will give you active members for for 4-H Henderson. And then if you click Run Report, that gives you that club and who is in there. You have a series of quick exports. You can pull ethnicity. Now this is more, I use this all the time at the state level because it allows me to pull all counties, but you can pull volunteer, do a quick report just in this one it basically breaks down your ES 237 into different components. So if there's a specific piece that you wanted to look at, you can just do that on your quick exports. One thing that you need to do if you want to do broadcast emails to your families, and I see that we already have an email in here, is to create a custom report. And so to do that, we click on custom. We're still in the reports icon, and over here under file options, we have create report. And you just add in a title and a description and click create. But I'm going to show you kind of what we got here and just walk through this. So I'm going to just simply click edit on this. But what will happen in your custom reports is it gives you, if you've worked in Excel, that's kind of the logic for this. So you can filter and do SQL to filter down all of these components and all this information we have in 4-H Online. Your custom reports, and I'm only going to do this for this because in order to do your broadcast emails, you have to have a custom report to link that to. And so that's your first step in that broadcast email process, if you will. You can simply go, or the first part here, I should say, is report. Then as you go forward with your custom reports, you have options for standard filters, data and format options. As you're building your report, instead of having to jump back and forth through the system, you can view the report at any time, which is very helpful. The nice thing about these custom reports is you can add in other fields and it's not going to impact the functionality with your broadcast email. As long as you've got an email address in there that report can flag for doing your broadcast emails, it's perfect. So where you would get that, you will default into this profile tab. Participation is if you were wanting to do a broadcast email perhaps by club, but this takes all of these different fields, if you will, that we ask of our 4-H information. And as you scroll down, we move from enrollment, then we get to family. And she's already pulled out family email. So we want these emails to go to our families. The nice thing to also think about is, especially if you've got teen programs, members can identify unique email addresses too. So you can include that, and then there's options where you can hit family and if there's members identified. If you really have your families are just using the one email, at least at minimum that information is going to get to them. And then after you've selected your field, click Save. You can also pull in member, first name, last name, any of these other components. And as we add information over, and it's just simply highlighting it, clicking these upper arrows, and if we don't want that information in there, then we can just send it back. But if you were thinking of an Excel spreadsheet, this is basically like column A, and it will build out this way. Your additional information is going to have, your photograph, audio releases. These are different elements that we're asking during the enrollment process. Participation is where you can get into your club titles, your project and clubs, I should say. And we haven't really delved anywhere into animals yet, but you can pull, as you move forward with different options in 4-H Online, you will be able to pull animal reports, do that type of thing. So as you're building any of your elements on these custom reports, so we worked on report, we have to hit save. Then we can move into standard filters. And basically this is going to say, okay, who do we want to send this to? You don't have to worry so much about role, and I guess an important piece on these custom filters is that less is more. So if you start checking boxes, and a common one is checking volunteer, non-volunteer, that kind of cancels it out. So I leave those unmarked because not everybody identifies that they're a volunteer. But we want to make sure that if they're an adult, or even if they're a teen, if they haven't checked this box, that they're not getting excluded from that information. We do want to probably identify that we are sending this email to active families. If you leave that unmarked, that's going to send it to everybody in your system. So it's possible that you'd be sending information to families that are no longer in your program. If you are keying or sending a broadcast email out, let's say for targeted to teens, or perhaps you're going to target it to adults, after rollover, you're going to probably want to check active and pending. Since we're working on family emails, though, this status will go family email, but we're active families, and that's an important piece. Since we're targeting families on this, we don't have to worry about the roles, but these are probably the more common areas that you're going to be checking. I don't recommend using the enrollment date, and the reason why is that is specifically focusing in on when that enrollment was in the system. Well, that's really hard to monitor. I can kind of remember day to day, but as far as for me to think, back a few months, what specific date did this enrollment get keyed in? No, it's working automatically in the current 4-H year. So if you leave that wide open, then that you will have a higher probability of that working versus entering in something in there. I very rarely filter down anything by gender, race, or school grade, but you certainly have that option with these reports. And again, after you make any changes, you want to click save. Since I'm sending it out to everybody, I should say you don't have to filter it down by clubs, but if you wanted to, specify a specific club in your broadcast email, you certainly can do that. Excuse me. Now, the nice thing about data and format options, and this is kind of where we get into the Excel, SQL functionality of 4-H Online, is that you can say, all right, I need this specific to what? And I do use this a lot with working with different animal reports, but you can say, I need this report to be club title equal to whatever. And you can kind of do that with standard filters anyway. It saves you a step. But if you needed a certain age range, or perhaps 4-H year equal to 1, that's where you can build that. And you can certainly play around with custom reports. I encourage that. And if you get into a pinch or you're not sure if it's going to work right, you can always click View Report, and it will give you that list. Now for this, I don't know why that's not pulling. Or maybe we're doing active status. I just need to not have that checked. Check. For as big as this county is, I'm kind of confused as to why that's only pulling. Pulling only those many emails. There we go. Lots a few more. Then we have duplicates. Okay, I'm gonna have to look at that one a little bit more. But you also have the ability to group. So if you created a custom report, you can get head counts, like how many are in this particular project. So if you perhaps build your fair reports in Excel, there are opportunities where you can count your records. You can also sort by last name, first name. And again, anytime you do that, you make changes, you want to hit save. And let me go back and undo what I had done in here for when I was demonstrating. But for this example, we do have names pulling up on this report. Oh, and we've quote unquote built our report. Correspondence, you can, this will give you an ability to make off of this custom report family labels, and you can export that into a PDF, which is handy. So we've created our custom report, and again, that will show up on this list. These don't go away, so that, you know, those persist. You don't have to create a new report every year for that specifically. And then if you go to connect, we have broadcast emails, and you have the ability to send information out to your families, and it's just a matter of simply clicking add broadcast email and call it a title or create a title for it. And then you have some different options here. You definitely want to put some delineation or some identifier. That this is an email from your county. The email address that's going to appear on this email is do not reply at 4honline@gmail.com, and it is a do not reply address. And so this is another area where the email address is critical. Sometimes families have to do a little legwork on their end to make sure that they've whitelisted that email address, for one. Depending on the server and the internet provider that they use, they may have to talk to IT to make sure that that's not flagged on their end as a spam email address, to make sure that that gets from point A to point B. But it all hinges on working email addresses. The nice thing about this too is when you send an email, there are metrics, if you will, and I can show you that here in a second, where you can click and see, okay, how many emails were sent, how many got there, what was bounced, what was opened, which is really handy. You can select here who your recipients are. If you go to members, that's individual members. If you go to families, that gets your broader email address. So if you're doing correspondence to teenagers, I do go with the family option more often than not. You are going to want to check all the time, use my email address as the reply to. As I said before, that's the emails out of 4-H Online are a do not reply to address. So if folks have questions or need to do a follow-up, you're going to want the ability to do that. I never include these links. If you don't give them the option to unsubscribe, then you're not going to have to worry to send to unsubscribe. You can go ahead and click continue. And in here is where you can get into building your email message. So So whatever information you wanted to do in there, you can send out meeting notices, you can do a wide variety of things, but there are merge fields. And so you can filter that and basically these work like your merge fields in Word. So if you wanted to have a personalized greeting, you can do that. You can, family, individual names. Now, it all depends on how your report was built. If you don't have those fields in there, then you're not going to have the ability to do that name piece. But if you want to embed, you can't create an attachment, if you will, in 4-H Online, but you can embed links. And so you can send documentation, if you will, in essence, I guess, in your emails. And how you do that is you can embed the newsletter into this email. So you should have a family field selection and a newsletter field selection, and you just select what email or what newsletter you want to send. Let's say we want to do that, but we want to make sure we hit return. So that gives you a link. So I should embed the newsletter. If they click on that, then that newsletter will pop up. But you're probably going to want to say, please click on, let's see here. You can put something very similar to that. Once you've got this the way you want it, and then you can either click save if you need to leave, or you can click continue. And then this is where you select your recipients. And you just select your report. Go to here. We've got family email. That's the one we clicked. We want to click save. And this will pull 11 families. 9 emails will be sent to families. Same email addresses will be consolidated. So we've got that already there. Click continue. And you click that little box and click send now and hit finish. It'll go out. If not, if there's, let's say, components that you needed to edit, you can. It's not going to go anywhere. And it will just show up in your list. So if we click edit on this email that was sent out, oh, this one wasn't sent out. If this email was sent, you would have a sent date, I guess. And then if you click the edit, it will give you a listing of metrics, and you can see what emails were bounced, dropped, that type of thing. But we'll go ahead and delete this. Let's see. So that covers communications with your families. If you want to allow logon, and I've forgotten to mention this, we kind of talked about clubs allowing login for your club leaders. If you want to allow login for your project leaders, where you would do that is under options, and then you have an option here under project leaders. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to filter this down by name, but each of your projects gets assigned a unique password. The first 3 digits are always alpha, the last 3 digits are always capitalized or numeric, and then the last 3 digits are capitalized alphas. Depending on how your projects are, if you allow login, that will be specific to that leader. Countywide, so let's say you have kiddos in this project that come from multiple clubs to work with that leader, then you would want to allow countywide. And they'll see everybody signed up for that project regardless of what club they're in. Then you just allow login. They would need to provide that project leader that password. So when they go to log in, they'll see a drop-down list before they click continue to family. There'll be an option for them to log in as a project leader or log in as a club leader. And then you just have to make sure for this individual, if they're leading a lot of projects, that's where it gets a little sticky. You have to probably send them an email with the different projects that they're leading and then the different project passwords. Let me see here. Another area that I wanted to show you is group enrollment. So we talked about ES-237, that our ES-237 is built on information that we collect on our enrollments, and it also is built on any of our programs that we do with youth throughout the 4-H year, perhaps like in different delivery modes, whether it's short-term programs, day camps, that type of thing. All of that information needs to be submitted in a group enrollment, and how you add your group enrollments is simply click on that icon and you can add group enrollment. And I'm going to go into one that's already done. And it's a 3-step process. And we do have on that staff help sheet page I talked about earlier, I do have a copy of that form that has basically all of the fields that you're going to need, or the information fields that you'll need, and also a sign-in sheet. And I can update that for Nevada, Carrie, if you'd like. But the nice thing is it gives you a paper base so when you're out in the field, and it never failed. I'd be good about getting a sign-in sheet, but I was horrible at getting a head count, and it just got to the point where I'd give a person this paperwork, have them fill it out for me so I don't have to worry about it. There's other things that you have to do, and a lot of times we're pulled into 500,000 different directions when we're doing a program, and this is something that a volunteer can help you out very easily, or even your teams. Getting a head count, the check-in sheet's nice, so that way if you have new kiddos or new families at this event, you're capturing that information so you can reach out with them, perhaps engage them either in another program or perhaps keep them on a list. I would keep an Excel spreadsheet of families that would contact me or perhaps engage in day camps that were not in 4-H, and then I would call them at the beginning of the 4-H year, and 9 times out of 10 they would end up signing up and engaging in the program, either as volunteers or sign their kids up to engage in 4-H. So it's a very easy way to get recruitment. You just have to do it. And so group enrollments, this reporting is a very easy process. It's absolutely critical. This information is submitted to USDA NIFA. If we aren't capturing these records and not reporting this, if we have to talk to our county commissioners or have to talk to our stakeholders when it comes time to demonstrate our impact, and we don't have any of that reported, well then it makes a very valid argument for them not to fund us. We are not a mandated program, but our jobs are contingent on putting proof in the pudding, if you will, on are you making contact with kids, are you delivering programs, and here's the how. So this reporting piece is very important. But the paperwork kind of captures all of this information. Your program name, when the program started and ended. It always will default to your current 4-H year. You do have to identify a club or group. When you're creating this fresh, you will have the option, if your group doesn't show up here, you do have the option to create a group. And so basically is this something that is on this list, or is it a different camp, or is it part of a club? You can do that, or if it's something else. And then on your delivery mode, you need to identify whether it's a special interest or short-term program. In this example, it's a school enrichment program. Your overnight camps, and this is an important piece on your ES-237, your overnight camps and your day camps should not be in the system as clubs. They are completely separate, and they should be reported on a group enrollment form, not in the traditional club component. A traditional club, if you will, is a club that has organized meetings. They're doing some sort of community service or service learning project, and it's kind of that melding pot with all of your different project kiddos. It's an organizational club, so you have a wide variety of project participants. It's very possible that they will engage in a fundraising activity with this, but that is not, the traditional club is not a day camp or an overnight camp. Those are elements you want to capture on your group enrollment, and so you'll want to check your data set to make sure you have that. So you'll identify the delivery mode on that program. This is a school enrichment program. Presenter, location, zip code, and it does get the system will be very funky if it will flag it as an error if you enter in the wrong zip code for your county, or affiliated zip codes for your area. You do want to track the number of program hours, and you have to check if it is or what projects are in this. Now, if we have different food and nutrition programs that are delivered by a variety of extension professionals across the state, you do want to make sure that that box is checked if it's a food and nutrition program. All comes to my Eat Smart Idaho as an example, some of those broader based type things. So once you've entered in that information, then you can get into member distribution. Duplicates in 4-H Online or in this group enrollment piece are those that are current 4-H participants. And so you're going to, on the paperwork and in here, you're going to want to go, okay, what were my total participants? And it looks like in this sample, they were all brand new. But if you had returning kiddos or you had 4-H kiddos at this event that are already enrolled, then you would add that number here. And then once that number is removed, then you come up basically with your magic number. And the magic number is what you carry forward as far as reporting your racial distribution, residence, and grade. And that was the grade. I knew my population and where I was working with, but I always failed to capture what grades the kids are on, and so that's on that paperwork as well. These numbers have to match, and if they don't match, you'll get red flags. Just enter in those numbers to make sure they're matched. And then the last piece is your volunteer distribution. Now, nice thing on the volunteers, these are new volunteers only. So if you have returning folks, then pretty much your form is done with the exception of checking the box and submitting it. But if you have new volunteers, be it adults or youth, then you'll want to capture the racial information, whether they're direct or indirect volunteer, same for adult and youth, and then if any training was done. And once you have all those components done, check that box, click submit, and you're good to go. The nice thing about this is even if you've submitted your form, you can edit these at any point in time, granted that it's done before midnight, September 30th. And all of this information goes in with your enrollment data set, and that's what helps build your ES-237. Let's see. Did I hit the major points, Carrie? Are there elements that you wanted me to show? Or
I guess the question would be for anybody that's on, is there anything else that you guys want to find out about?
Can you correct data from the previous years? No. Once they're submitted, they're done.
Can we go back and correct this year's, like next week? I was thinking we could.
Yes, this year's data set, we still have a little bit of time. Technically, counties should all have their stuff in before midnight, but we can, on the state level, massage. They won't be able to massage it, but we can.
Okay.
I think
So I can work with Joelle next week, and
I think they give us to about the beginning of November to do that. The 4-H year ends at midnight, September 30th. The new 4-H year starts on October 1st. You guys should have no issues. If you don't have, it doesn't sound like we have any major system issues or upgrades to make. So in theory, at 1 a.m. on October 1st, families could start doing re-enrollments if they so choose. They're really being ambitious on Saturday. But one thing to watch for, log in on Monday, see how things are. You're going to see a lot of inactive records. If there's any of those housekeeping pieces you need to do as far as linking projects to clubs or getting clubs in there, I would recommend doing that now versus on Saturday. That way, if you do have folks that are wanting to get enrolled, or if families are wanting to do that over the weekend, you'll probably want to make sure that those elements are done before the 1st. And the nice thing about that, when we roll over, everything's ready to rock and roll. But you should be all set with that.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
No worries. So I ran the report, the ES 237, and a lot of that first page that comes up only has a very small portion of all of our members. So I'm thinking something must not be checked properly in the member records. Not sure if that makes sense.
A big piece on what impacts your youth membership, and I think, let me look here to see.
that one was weird last year too, Stormy. So I think that there is something goofy.
Okay.
We just didn't know what it was.
What happens, Stormy, if you go here, let me do a share screen. You should be able to, this may help you if you click on the data tab and go to enrollment issues. I think if you have kiddos that are not identifying with a primary club, that's a flag if they're active. What county are you in? I can hop over.
Southern Nye County.
Okay.
Southern Nye is what. Yep, Southern Nye.
Okay.
I don't see anything when I do that. I'm just thinking if we're able to identify it, I could change it before the deadline.
Yes. No, you don't have anything wrong with there. I'm just going to run it. Oh boy, you have 544 participants, but total.
No, we don't, sadly.
Oh, you don't. How many do you have?
62.
How much?
62.
62. Well, that's more than 11.
Right.
Okay. So is there a reason why they're flagged?
Maybe.
Okay, well, you may want to go through and check to see if they're projects. If they're affiliated with a club, that's one thing, but I think, let me go. Well, it worked now, but I don't know why club is only at 11. Your total 4-H participation is at 62. I would.
Has anybody, it seemed like there was a couple last year that had that issue. So that might be, we also have a couple other questions in the chat box.
Okay, I would go through and make sure that your kiddos have identified their clubs, and then I would also double check to make sure that they've got their projects, just as a housekeeping piece. And if you run that and it still comes up that way, that might be something I can have James and Celeste look at, because I'm not seeing anything like when you click on that data tab, that would make major flags for that. So,
Okay.
Question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, first question, where do you enter training? So there's a couple different options that you can do for training, and let me share my screen again. If you're on the enrollment tab and you go to training, your trainings actually have to be created at the state level, but you can, and it doesn't look like we have anything, so that will be a function that we'll need to do. But let me just.
They can't do county trainings?
Yeah, we can create some generic training levels for you. So when you, once that's in there, and this will be something we can work on for next year, but I can create some generic training levels and I'll work with Carrie on that. But once the training is there, then you can actually do a group entry. So if you, let's say you do a county orientation, you can filter down. Let's say we're doing a county orientation for adults. Off of your sign-in sheet, you can flag the adults that were in there, and you can do add flagged to a training. And then as the training list appears, we can actually, all you have to do is select the training, you highlight your folks, and then you can add your members to the training. And that works very handy if you're doing any new leader training, if you're doing like, first aid CPR. And I guess what would be helpful is if you guys could let Carrie know potential training types that we would need to create. Some of the things that we have in Idaho, we have like a CANS, like a county 2-hour training, a county 1-hour training, county half-hour training. I can't get into, they're very general training categories, but it at least would give you a ability to kind of flag that folks have done some sort of training, if that makes sense. Yeah, for this year, I'm sorry, Candy, it can't. If we can get those fields in there, I guess we could get those entered in.
I mean, I can try to get them entered. Yeah, I could try to get them entered this morning if possible.
Yeah, if you can let Candy, I guess that if you could let Carrie know what kind of trainings, or if the length of time, or some ideas on what you're needing there, then you could flag those folks, get them in the system, and then you would be able to enter that in for this year. And then the nice thing as well is those training types would carry forward for next year. If we don't get that done, then we can you at least have a paper record. I know that's not a perfect or an ideal situation there. You would still have that on your end, but if we can get that done, then you should be able to do that. If you don't have a club, Carrie, I'm going to let you handle that one.
If there's not a club, I guess I'm trying to figure out, then if they're not in a club, then they would be enrolled as individual members. If they're actually doing 4-H project work, if they are a group, if it's just an activity, then that would be going as a group enrollment. Does that make sense?
Oh, and good point, Candy. Adding them as an activity, that is a great workaround to that. That does make a link to their record that they did engage in that. So the activity is something that you can do on your end. So good workaround. Good point. I'm trying to think. I covered a lot. If you guys have questions, don't hesitate to ask Carrie or myself. But as we roll over, something to keep in mind, just keep an eye out for next week or so. Monitor, make sure there aren't any issues. You can definitely play around. I guess, do you have a training county or a demo county, Carrie?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have that login information? Because that is something that they can do.
I'm sure I do.
So your county, okay, so your county for each program, all of your data, your enrollment records should be managed on this system. If you have parallel systems, and what I mean by that is like Excel or other databases, you want to have all of your enrollment records in 4-H Online. Those other systems are not what we need you to have your enrollment records in. So yes, this will track, this database is the record for all of your member records, all of your volunteer records. I hope that answers your question.
National Youth Science Day would be a group enrollment for next year's program. But yes, that's exactly. And Erica, when you said about the group enrollment, I've just been sending them the Idaho group enrollment and told them to ignore the logo on it.
Okay, yep, perfect. Good.
Any other questions?
I guess we have a lot of school programs. Unfortunately, the 4-H year doesn't always marry up, and it really doesn't marry up with the school year. If you have programs that are starting in the schools, hold those enrollments, because they're going to go inactive at midnight. So if you have the paperwork, you've made the insurance arrangements, that's fine. But as you roll to the new year, then hold those group enrollments, hold those actual member enrollments if they're a school-based club, get them in the system once we roll over. Okay. Yes, definitely keep adding information in the system. You have, unfortunately, today and tomorrow to get your enrollment records in. And if you have a large number, I apologize for that. There's not an easy workaround for that. You do want that data set or that data entry piece to be completed by tomorrow at midnight. Okay, perfect. If all of your enrollment records are in, then you should be golden. I would run an ES 237 just to see, and then check that data tab to see if there are any errors as far as the primary club flag and that type of thing. But if you've keyed in all your enrollments and everything's set on that, then you should be good to go. And then, as I had said, once we roll over, keep an eye on things. If you do run into issues or if you're running into questions, send me a support ticket. I will be in next week on the, I'm doing a fair amount of traveling this next month. So I will be out of the office from the 8th to the 14th. I will be back in the office from the 17th through the 21st, and then I will be out of the office again from the 21st to November 1st, and I'll be back in November 2nd. But email and the support ticket is a very good way of getting a hold of me, and I do monitor Zendesk in a variety of different ways when I'm on the road. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for things, and I'll look as well. If there's something that flags on my end, I'll be sure to let Carrie know or send out a group email to you guys.
And I get the Zendesk emails too. And so if it's something that I can quickly answer, then I'll try to answer it. Some things I can answer, but if not, then I leave it and Erica knows to answer it.
Yeah. We worked a long time together, so we got you guys covered. So
yep. I'm
don't
not
be afraid to ask questions. The big thing with 4-H Online is don't be afraid to use it. Encourage your support staff, your coordinators to use it. I'm happy to answer questions. That's the name of the game. So, any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you, Erica. And just so everybody knows, we did record this session. It just, depending on how long it takes it to convert and get it loaded into YouTube, I will send out the link as soon as I get that. So thank you. Like I said, we did record it. So Dixie, if you want, you can go back and watch the first hour. So thank you and have a great day.
All right.